a blessing to be with Frank. The man, he's a songwriter, he's a performer, musician, a little bit of everything. Let me ask you a question, Frank.
Sure.
Think back. What was the first time you remember hearing music and saying, man, I got to be part of that?
Well, I grew up in a family that listened to a lot of music. My sister listened to Miles Davis and Elvis Presley, and so I learned a little Presley from her when I was about 10 years old. She had a guitar, and my mother listened to the Platters and the Drifters and Ray Charles. So I got a good dose of a little country, a little rock and roll, a little rhythm and blues. But when I was 14, now this was on an army base in Japan, I went to see Woodstock. And that's when I was, I had my first experience watching The Who on film. And when I saw that, I went to see the film 8 times, paid big money at a Japanese theater in Tokyo. And I saw The Who come up on the film. And they took my breath away every time. And I said, that's what I want to do.
And now you're playing with them. Isn't it funny how it works?
I'm not only playing with them, I'm their musical director.
Dreams,
they
bigger
look
dreams.
to me as their leader, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And an honor. Yeah.
Wow. Tell me about the importance of relationships in the music business.
I think it's everything. I think trust is something you can't buy in a store, can't buy on eBay. And when someone trusts you, that's a big honor in itself. And hard to come by because people are after all sorts of things. They have their agendas and they're after gain for themselves, and so you don't know who to trust. And so when you can really trust somebody in this business, it's a big deal.
How have relationships helped your career? Do you have any instances, any examples of where relationships have helped you with your dreams?
Well, the most recent relationships I've had with Roger and Pete. I met Roger Daltry about 9 years ago, and he was playing in a charity band, and that's a story in itself, meeting him. He came sauntering into a nightclub where he was rehearsing, and he had fired one guitar player and then a second guitar player, and the drummer and one of the other guitar players recommended me. And I came in, and I hadn't met Roger, and he came sauntering in this room playing Behind Blue Eyes, and I just filed in. I knew how to play the song, and I knew how to sing background vocals, and so I just filed in. We played the whole song together, and then he looked at me and he goes, well, that'll do. And he goes, Roger. And that's how I met him. And we played one show at that nightclub for a tightly packed crowd, and he squeezed his way through and said, hey, Frank, how would you fancy putting a quartet together and doing some corporate shows? And I said, Roger, I would fancy that. And, I guess he sensed that he could, he trusted my musicality, and we had a nice feeling between us. And that's how relationships begin, how you feel about somebody right off the bat, and then how it evolves.
Think back maybe early in your career, so those early relationships, kind of advice or a story you would show as an example to someone who is a musician. I'm sure you get asked, how do you get to play with these guys? Being prepared and maybe...
Well, you want to be prepared. You want to show up on time. I guess if I wrote a book about success, I'd say show up on time. Be showered and ready to go. Know your material.
Yeah.
So that's a given. But beyond that, I think, and you're going back to talking about relationships, I think the best thing to do is learn a sense of diplomacy. Know how to negotiate your way. You don't have to always play your cards. You want to be honest, but you want to do it diplomatically. I guess that's my advice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's talk about some of the earlier days. You played with Rod Stewart.
Yeah.
How did things like that happen? And
I just got called in by Richard Perry, producer in L.A. He's produced 150 artists, and he heard about me because I play with Don Henley, a little bit with the Eagles, Don Felder, Stevie Nicks, and so I got called in to do a couple sessions for Richard Perry, some for Art Garfunkel, and that led to playing on Rod Stewart's second songbook album. Yeah.